Well, I guess I'd say that the thing I come up against the most is a belief that mobile TV, and it's along the lines of what Rose was saying, that mobile TV is necessarily going to follow the model of traditional TV. And probably the big religious argument that I find ourselves often getting into is should mobile TV just be basically a co-transmission of an existing linear channel, something that people are already familiar with on regular TV that they can now get on this device that happens to be in their pocket, or whether it should be something wholly unto itself that people use in a different way. One of the things we saw at first with a lot of carriers around the world was they would just assume that because you had this device with you that could bring you things that were happening as they were happening wherever you happened to be, that therefore it's very intuitive. You'd want to see news and breaking news highlights and updates and things of that nature because they're immediacy. But on the other hand, if you look at the demographic of news channels, for instance, on cable, you're looking at a demo that tends to be male, tends to be over 50, doesn't exactly fit the demo of the person who might be buying a video-capable mobile device and watching video and subscribing to services on it. And sure enough, we found with a lot of carriers that's proven to be the case. When there's a big breaking news event, usage will spike just like it does on CNN, but for the most part, you don't find a lot of 20-year-old guys, watching a lot of news. And, they're watching TV, they're blogging or reading blogs, it's sexy stuff or music, but news isn't really usually that big on their particular list. So, what we've tried to do is try to tailor things that we think are right for the demographic of the audience as it exists right now. But I think a lot of people approach it from a more traditional. I guess I would point to things that are working well by looking at a direction I see lots and lots of carriers going in that may be a reaction to perhaps things that haven't been working so well. And again, I think a lot of it is about pricing. We're seeing a lot more carriers now discard some of their a la carte offerings or reduce them. As was mentioned about Telefonica, they're now up to 26 channels, and I think it's now down to €5. We see that as a trend kind of spreading in a lot of places where the pricing is becoming, I think, more realistic from a consumer standpoint and is encouraging more usage. We're also seeing less separate charges for data. There's a number of countries where not only do you pay a daily or monthly fee for the content itself, but then you actually pay based on the number of kilobits that you consumed, which I kind of liken to going into a play, and then if you stayed for the entire time, you get charged extra because you use the heat and the light and the water, whereas if you had left at intermission, you would have been charged less. As a producer of content, or if I were a playwright, that certainly wouldn't be a model I'd be too happy about. So we're seeing in some ways things get cheaper. There's more bundles. We're even seeing more and more, at least talk and some early experiments with advertising. Certainly something that we, as also a broadcaster, are familiar with and very comfortable with. That you might actually get a lot of this content subsidized by sponsors, where it might be next to nothing or even free, and the cost is paid for in other ways. Well, one of the things I can say is that in places like Japan and Korea, where they do have various multicast types of platforms, whether they're DMBH or ISDBT or the like, the one thing they do see is much longer viewing sessions, that people will watch 25, 45 minutes a day or at a time. And I think what we learned from that is that when the experience becomes pretty much equal to what we're used to on other devices that we watch video, and by which I also include things like iPods, that where it's no longer about, gee, isn't this neat, I can get this on my phone and I want to show off to my friend, but instead that I'm actually immersed in the content. I've forgotten that I'm even watching it on a phone. It's just, I want to know what happens next in the story. I think we need to get to that point, that level of quality in the delivery, before we'll really know what people want to do with these things. I think right now it is very much a compromised kind of product. And an irony that I see is that in some of those very markets in Asia where they have the broadcast tuner built into the phone with incredible quality, at the same time some of them have 3G networks with bit rates as low as 40 kilobits, where I defy anybody to have a good experience watching that.
Do you have any sort of gut feel about how much of the appeal is the quality of the experience they can have on mobile devices in Japan and Korea, as distinct from the embedded primacy of the mobile device to access the web? Any sense of how to sort of tease those apart? Or?
Again, a lot of it also has to do with pricing, and there's some models in Japan where you get charged a fortune to watch video on 3G because it's data consumption. I think that skews the results you're going to get. I think they need to be differentiated services. I totally agree that to have a brand or a channel, if you will, that works across the multiple platforms that you can do on your PC, that you do on your home TV set, that you do on your mobile, I think that's great. But ultimately, in any given territory, in a lot of places we're seeing triple, quadruple plays where the phone carrier is also the IPTV or ADSL provider and the cable or satellite provider. They're going to say, hey, if I'm carrying HBO, I'll put HBO on all my pipes. You're not going to get me to pay a premium for the for the people who are watching it on mobile. I think, and conversely, from the user side, if I'm already paying $15 a month to have HBO in my home, am I going to pay anything on top of that to also have the exact same experience on my mobile, which may not even be a particularly good experience when I'm out and about? I think to the extent that we can deliver things that are tailored for each of these different platforms that are slightly different, I think everybody's actually going to make a tremendous part for the carriers to play in the very kinds of interactive services we were talking about that do distinguish mobile video from video on a TV set. All these kinds of things, whether it's the billing and the transaction mechanisms, whether it's chat and texting and other kinds of user interaction, whether it's location-based services added to video. All of these are things that a content provider can't do. It really requires the network operator to make these things happen.